My name is Ibrahim Sanusi. I am a development cooperation professional, and I'm in charge of talking to you today about the role of the African Union and its specialized bodies. This is part of the Democracy, Elections and Governance in Africa MOOC, organized by the AfricTivistes on behalf of the Charter Project Africa. In this course, I will introduce you to the African Union, its mandate, and how this relates to issues of democracy, human rights, gender issues on the continent based on the African Charter on Democracy, Elections and Governance, which is often referred to as the ACDEG. But to get into this, we need to understand the African Union in itself. So what is the African Union? The African Union was officially launched in July 2002 in Durban, South Africa, following a decision in September 1999 by the Organization of African Unity to create a new continental organization to build on its work. The Secretariat of the African Union is based in Addis Ababa and is called the African Union Commission. And the African Union as a union is composed of 55 AU member states, which are 55 countries of the continent Africa. Now, what is the vision of the African Union? The vision of the African Union is an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa driven by its own citizens and representing a dynamic force in the global arena. Agenda 2063, officially adopted by the AU Assembly in 2015, provides a collective vision and roadmap to build a prosperous and united Africa based on shared values and a common destiny. The AU has several objectives. These objectives are codified in Article 3 of the African Union Constitutive Act of 2000, and also the Protocol to the Act, which was adopted in 2003, highlights some of the objectives. Many of them include greater unity and solidarity between African countries and its people, promotion of peace, security, and stability on the continent, promotion of democratic principles and institutions, popular participation and good governance, promotion and protection of human and people's rights in accordance with the African Charter on Human People's Rights and other relevant human rights instruments. We also have those that speak to cooperation in the fields of human activity to raise the living standards of African peoples. There are also objectives that speak to advancing the development of the continent through promotion of research in all fields, particularly science and technology. It also speaks to issues relating to working with international partners in the eradication of preventable diseases and the promotion of good health on the continent. More around these objectives, of course, can be found on the African Union website. But what is the operating structure of the Union? We've seen the objective, we understand the organization, but how is the organization structured? The African Union has 6 key decision-making organs. The first of those organs, and the organs, before we go into these organs, these policy organs are responsible for decision-making on various mandates of the African Union, and they operate at different levels. The membership of these organs is also drawn strictly from AU member states. The first of the operating structure of the African Union is what is called the Assembly of Heads of State and Government. This is the supreme policy and decision-making organ of the African Union, and it comprises all member states' heads of state and government. The Executive Council is the second structure. The Executive Council coordinates and takes decisions on policies in areas of common interest to member states. It is also responsible to the Assembly. The Executive Council considers issues referred to it and monitors the implementations of decisions already taken by the Assembly. The Executive Council is made up of foreign ministers, ministers of foreign affairs, or such other ministers or authorities as designated by individual countries of the African Union. The third is the Permanent Representative Committee. The committee is charged with the responsibility of preparing the work of the Executive Council, and it also acts on behalf or on instructions of the Executive Council. The Permanent Representative Committee is made up of what are called permanent representatives, or if you like, ambassadors and other plenipotentiaries of member states. Specialized technical committees is the fourth. And these STCs, as they are called, are thematic committees that are provided for under the AU Constitutive Act. And they are responsible to the Executive Council. These STCs are comprised of ministers of thematic line ministries in various member states, or their senior officials that are designated. There are STCs on health, STCs on good governance and justice and rule of law. There are STCs on health, there are STCs on sports, on youth development, there are STCs on culture, on information. Just think about every technical issue that you can come up with. There is an STC responsible for it within the African Union. The fifth is the Peace and Security Council. The PSC, as we call it, is the AU's organ for the prevention, management, and resolution of conflicts. It comprises 15 elected member states of the African Union. The last but not the least is the Commission, which is regarded as the Secretariat of the African Union. As I told you earlier, this secretariat is based in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and is composed of an elected chairperson, a deputy chairperson, and 6 commissioners who are responsible for the thematic focus of the secretariat, and of course, composed of its staff as well. There are also what are called regional groups. These are the 5 geographic regions that are recognized by the African Union. These groups were already defined by the Organization for African Unity in 1976. And they are the Central Africa, the Eastern Africa, the Northern Africa, the Southern Africa, and the Western Africa. There is also the regional economic communities. The regional economic communities are regional groupings of African states, and they are the pillars of the African Union. In fact, they are often called the building blocks of the African Union. All of these were formed prior to the African Union, and they have developed individually and have differing roles and structures. Nonetheless, the purpose of REX is to facilitate regional integration between its members, and also through wider African Economic Community, which was established under the Abuja Treaty of 1991. That treaty has been in operation since 1994, and it ultimately seeks to create an African common market using the REX as its building blocks. There are 8 recognized regional economic communities. The first is the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. There is the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD. There is the Southern Africa Development Community, SADC. There is the Arab Maghreb Union, UMA. There is the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa, COMESA. There is the Community of Sahel and Saharan States, CENSAD. There is the East African Community. And last but not the least is the Economic Community of Central African States, ECAS. There are also observers, non-governmental organizations, non-African states, regional integration, and international organizations can apply for observer status or accreditation to the African Union. The Executive Council of the African Union adopted a criteria for granting observer status in 2005, and also creates an opportunity for partnership chapters for a list of non-African states and organizations accredited to the African Union. The Assembly recognizes representatives of African diaspora invited to attend the Assembly sessions as observers. This is a brief overview of the African Union, its structures, and the various levels that it operates. In the next module, we will be looking at the mission and the vision of the African Union as it is defined in what is called the Agenda 2063. I see you shortly.